This is GARIS, Masculist, MGTOW flyers. That is 2 3-page essays on the themes of masculism and MGTOW, written by and read aloud by Prof. Dr. Hugo de Garis. This is flyer number 388, part 2, entitled Masculism, LATting and Love. Continuing straight on. Okay, now that it's clear what the advantages of LATting are, what impact might such a lifestyle have on the quality of relationships between men and women? I think this is a really important question, since the current gender wars that feminism and masculism are engaged in are temporary and cannot last too long, since they are exhausting and need to be overcome. Women are fipping up and men are rejecting manslavery in their millions. Marriage is dying and fewer kids are being born, so that the gender laws will obviously have to be reformed or we wipe ourselves out. This will happen in time, and the two sexes, now both FIPS and still hungry for companionship and sex, will have found new ways to relate together. LATting is a very real and serious candidate for such a new way of relating. I come now to the third noun in the title, namely love. What is that word doing there? The word love is not one I use lightly. If you listen to the pop songs of the peakers, that is average Joes, whose IQ levels place them in the peak of the IQ distribution, that is bell curve, they mistake love for passion, sex, desire. Actual love is a very different kettle of fish. I would only use the word love in the following sense. I see relationships, long-term ones, serious ones, go through 4 phases. The first is the honeymoon phase, when the sex is new and blissful and the orgasms are frequent and joyous, and everything about the relationship seems wine and roses. But such a phase does not last, because sooner or later the novelty wears off and the two partners begin to learn about the negative aspects of the personalities of the other partner. I call this the negative phase of the relationship. Many relationships end in the second phase as the negative traits become too strong to be tolerated, so the couple decides to break it off, sometimes unilaterally by one of the two partners or mutually. The third phase I call the acceptance phase, which as its name suggests, is an acceptance of the negative traits of the partner that the other partner simply learns to live with, who tries not to allow these negative traits to annoy them too much. The fourth phase is what I call the love phase. That is, the sense of deep intimacy that grows over years, of tolerant acceptance of the other person for what they are, warts and all. By living with a person, not necessarily full-time, and using the LATting lifestyle, I suspect that this fourth phase is more likely to eventuate than with the traditional fluffy housewife, man-slave husband, full-time living together lifestyle. Many marriages stay together because the husband reasons that it is cheaper to keep her than going through a divorce, in which the hated, fluffy, feminist, hypocrite-dominated divorce court system will financially massacre the man, the husband. I would think that in practice, judging by observing many couples, that probably only about 1/10 of them are happy, where the two partners take a real pleasure in each other's company and sexuality. I think that LATting will greatly increase the odds of that happening. By LATting, those relationships that don't survive phase 2, that's the discovery of the negative traits of the partner, are easily broken and separate from each other. One only lives once, so it's a tragedy to stay in a lackluster marriage, so LATting allows one to escape easily from a bad one. Due to the discipline, hunger and civility of LATting relationships, their general quality is higher, so a higher proportion of them survives, which allows more of them to survive long enough for phase 4, that's love, to develop. If the sex is good and regular, it's easier to develop a strong emotional bond within the couple, since the two of them associate the other partner with emotional and erotic pleasure. Sex is the great glue that evolution provided to keep the two sexes together, even though the two sexes evolved with very different purposes and hence are mutually alien. Men evolved to want to penis women. Women evolved to grow and raise children, so chose men who would help them do that. This all makes good evolutionary psychological sense. The LATting lifestyle encourages regular and reliable sexuality, so promotes deep affection between the couple, as nature intended it. Given the above advantages of the LATting lifestyle, I predict, without having to stick my neck out too much, is that it will become one of the most popular lifestyles for the childless, that is, for older couples, or for those who decide to be childless, which is becoming an increasingly popular lifestyle amongst the younger generation. For example, I have 3 adult nieces. 2 of them have decided to be childless. Now, of course, LATting is not practical for those couples who choose to have children, since there is a common sense need for both parents to be present in the same house to raise the kids. The kids need both parents, since single mother families are spectacularly unsuccessful, with the children much more likely to have real problems such as teenage pregnancies, depression, alcoholism, high school dropping out, drug addiction, crime, etc. The problem for couples who want to have kids is that the current divorce courts are controlled by the hated fluffy feminist hypocrites who have made divorce and hence marriage and paternity so toxic for men that 2/3 of young men in many countries now reject marriage and paternity, preferring to live the MGTOW, men going their own way, lifestyle, spending their money on themselves. Traditional marriages with children are dying out, as the gender politicians have not yet understood the importance of men fairing the gender laws, so that young men are prepared to be fathers again. Until that happens, more and more young men will prefer the LATting lifestyle, like the older generation, because current families with children are way too dangerous for a young man. He will face a 1 in 4 chance, if he marries and has kids, of being financially massacred by the hated fluffy feminist divorce court lawyers and judges, losing his kids, his house, half his wealth, paying child support and often alimony to a fluffy parasite wife. This also sucks for a young man, that naturally he rejects it, which ultimately will wipe out whole populations. So sooner or later, the gender politicians, and politicians in general, will be forced to men fair the gender laws, or they will be assassinated for being the generators of the paternity strike on the part of young men. Longer term, these problems will be resolved so that there may end up being 2 main lifestyles between the sexes. That is, the traditional full-time couple with kids living in the same house, and the LATting lifestyle with 2 houses, 2 FIPs, and a part-time relationship. For example, 3-4ing or 4-3ing. Today, the LATting lifestyle is lived by a quarter of singles, in the UK at least. My expectation, given all the above arguments, is that this LATting lifestyle will become much more popular and become the dominant lifestyle for the older generation. And if the gender laws are not made men fair pretty soon, even for the younger generation as well. But if that happens, we wipe ourselves out, because we will not be creating the next generation. Cheers. Prof. Dr. Hugo de Garis. Email profhugodegaris@yahoo.com. Website profhugodegaris.wordpress.com. Author of the book Masculism, Men's Rebellion Against Being Man's Slaves to Women, an e-textbook of 380 plus Masculist flyers for men's studies courses. Freely downloadable in Microsoft Word format from my website. Ciao.